The Chicago Bulls had one of the more interesting off seasons in the NBA last season, bringing in Lonzo Ball, bringing in Demar Derozan. They brought in some of the most headlining names of free agency. But even with that being said, even with Nikola Vucevic being brought in at the trade deadline last season, there is still skepticism amongst this group and whether they will even be a guarantee to be in the playoffs for this upcoming season. That being said, I want to talk about the Chicago Bulls team, what I expect from them for this upcoming season, and how successful they can be in the 2021-22 campaign. If you do go on to enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And if you want to continue to hear more season previews on more teams across the NBA, then be sure to stay tuned for the channel, as I will continue to release those as we approach the start of the NBA season. That being said, let's talk about the Chicago Bulls offseason, and then we'll talk a little bit more about their roster. Of course, Demar Derozan and Lonzo Ball were the two marquee signings for the Chicago Bulls this offseason, but they were far from the only additions. They also brought in Derrick Jones Jr. via the Lauri Markkanen sign-and trade. They also brought in Alize Johnnson, Stanley Johnnson, Alex Caruso, and Tony Bradley as the notable additions. And Demar Derozan, of course, is going to be the biggest name of that and the most impactful and important person in all of those additions. He gives a lot of a relief in the scoring load off of Zach Levine, and as well as Nikola Vucevic doing some of the same, and it allows Zach Levine to focus more on playmaking. It'll allow for more playmaking within the starting group with the addition of Demar Derozan, and it allows Zach Levine to be able to focus more on the defensive side of the ball as well, which is something that he hopes to do so this upcoming season. Lonzo Ball was also a great addition as a point guard, was definitely needed for the Chicago Bulls team. Kobe White is not the most traditional of point guards, especially in a playmaking sense. I think him being in the six-man role for this team is the best role for him at this point in time in his career. I think Lonzo Ball is going to add some playmaking alongside DeMar DeRozan. They're going to have a lot of good playmaking players on this team now with DeRozan, with Levine, with Lonzo, and Vucevic is an underrated playmaker as well at the center spot. So a lot of good playmaking and passing ability on this starting lineup. I think Lonzo Ball is going to add to their defense as well, which is the biggest question mark for a lot of people. And so having his defense on this team is going to be very important. Alex Caruso's impact and energy and defense off of the bench is also going to be very much of value. The same can be said for Derrick Jones Jr., who's now going to be very much in a role where he primarily just has to be a defensive guy, a defensive wing, and he will most certainly be an important part of that for them off the bench alongside Alize Johnnson, who they also brought in, will be there for some defending and rebounding depth as well. And then Tony Bradley projects to be the backup center. It's not the best backup center in the world, but it's fine. He has a bit of NBA experience. And with Vucevic being the main guy, he's not going to have to play significant minutes in that role either. As far as the players who left the Chicago Bulls this offseason, of course, Thomas Satoransky leaves, but Lonzo Ball came in, Thaddeus Young left, but of course, Derrick Jones and Alize Johnsson came in. Lauri Markkanen also left via the sign and trade. Garrett Temple left, Aminu left, Daniel Theis, Felicio, and Denzel Valentine. So a lot of departures, but they brought in a lot of players. They're not really lacking in depth. And Lonzo and Kobe White will man the point guard spots. Zach and Caruso at shooting guard. DeRozan and Troy Brown at small forward. Patrick Williams, Derrick Jones Jr. and Alize Johnsson at the power forward spot. And Vucevic and Tony Bradley at center. They have a nice chunk of depth on this team. They have a lot of defensive pieces on the bench, which is something they're going to need due to the lack of it in the starting lineup. Caruso, Troy Brown, Derrick Jones Jr., Alize Johnsson have some nice defensive players that can supplement the lack of offense, or the lack of defense, pardon me, in that starting lineup. But I don't know if it's going to be enough. Lonzo Ball is a solid defender, but he's not an elite man-on-man defender. He's a good help defender. He can get in some passing lanes, and he's a solid man-on-man defender, but he's not an elite one. Patrick Williams, of course, is going to have to be the anchor to this defense, being an elite wing defender, locking down whoever the best wing player is on any team in any given night. He's expected to miss the first couple of weeks of the season, which is here or there in the grand scheme of things, but it will definitely hurt them at the start of the season. But Zach Levine's going to have to try to improve his defensive play this upcoming season and play defense a lot more like we saw in the Olympics, and he has shown throughout his time in the NBA. DeMar DeRozan has never been a great defender. There was always hope that he would be a good one, and it's just never happened. Nikola Vucevic is not an amazing defender for the center position either, which is where you really need a good center, especially if your perimeter defense is not anything great, which for this Bulls team it most certainly isn't. And so that's the biggest concern for the Chicago Bulls. It's, can these pieces be put together and get chemistry and fit in time for the playoffs, and to even have a good enough record to be relevant at that point? And will the defense be okay enough for the offense to be able to carry them to enough success? And these are legitimate questions. And now I do see some people putting them down in the 9 seed or in the 10 seed. And I think that's absolutely egregious. Even if their defense is terrible, there's no way that their offense doesn't carry them to at least being comfortable play-in team. You could still argue that they're going to be in the play-in because I have them there, and I think that's completely reasonable because this is a much improved Eastern Conference. And there's a lot of teams ahead of them that I think you can just argue are better two-way teams. And you can definitely make the argument that the Chicago Bulls will be higher up in the standings and then the 7th seed and will avoid the play-in games. And I think they are better than a 7th best team in the Eastern Conference, where I have them finishing in the regular season, even with their questions on the defensive end. But I think they are going to take some time to figure it out. They have a lot of new pieces to integrate, a lot of new pieces to gain chemistry together. Nikola Vucevic has hardly played with Zach Levine. Demar Derozan is now new. Lonzo Ball is now new. Their bench is pretty much completely new, outside of Kobe White and Troy Brown. So they have a lot of chemistry that they're going to have to figure out with this group, a lot of pieces that they're going to have to integrate and figure out how they all fit together, figure out their rotations, what works, what doesn't. So there's going to be a lot of time that they might be better at the end of the season, but early on they're going to have to figure some things out. And there's going to be some growing pains. There's no doubt about it. So I think this is going to be a good Chicago Bulls team. It's going to be one of the most fun teams to watch this season, one of the funnest teams to watch that's a very new look team. But I do have them finishing 7th in the NBA Eastern Conference. I believe they will make the playoffs to the play-in, no doubt about it. And they will not be a fun 7 seed to play against for whoever ends up being the 2 seed. But I think Zach Levine is going to be very important. I think he's going to continue to be their MVP for this upcoming season. I think Alize Johnnson is going to have an important role and be their most improved player. And I think the continued improvement and development on the offensive end of Patrick Williams is the X factor for this group. So I do think this Chicago Bulls team has improved a lot from where they were last year. But I also do still have concerns about their defensive ability, and there most certainly will be some growing pains to figure out some chemistry and some lineups to begin the season. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below about this upcoming Chicago Bulls season. If you think they'll have a season where they absolutely blow things away in the East and they can push for a top 4 seed, or if you think this is a team whose defensive struggles really are going to be their detriment and will see themselves back down in the play-in. That being said, if you did enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And stay tuned for more season previews, as I will continue to roll out another 27 as we approach the NBA season. That being said, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.